All right, this is calling to order the meeting February 5th of the Charter Commission for the Town of Harwich.
Was Dana gonna drop in?
Be Mayor?
I gave him all the information.
Okay.
We're on.
Yeah, we are.
Okay. All right, first thing on the agenda.
Is this yours? I just did.
Fine.
Thought I had one.
Have an extra one. Approval of the regular minutes of January 29th, 2026, and the subcommittee meeting on January 28th, 2026.
So moved.
So we have so moved from Richard. Is there a second?
Second the motion.
Thank you. Any changes, corrections, conversation? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay. So this is, we put public comment at the beginning because we asked if any any select board members from the past would like to comment on their experiences with the charter. And we have, with us today, we have Mary Anderson, Peter Hughes, and we have Anita Doucette, who is a current member of the select board. And hopefully we will end up with Dana DaCosta. And this is Anthony Wilson, for those of you who don't know him. He's with the Collins Group. He's our consultant. So, if someone would like to belly up here
Come sit.
and tell us your thoughts.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you. One of the things that struck me, and thank you, Lou, for sending it to me, because once I lost my laptop, I didn't have a copy of it. I'm wondering if maybe a section that defines terms, that whole thing about agencies, committees, departments, divisions, I know it took me a while to sort it out, and I'm just thinking maybe have it, and there may be other words in there, but I was just thinking somewhere have a definition of terms.
Do you mean term limits or just the terms of the office?
Terms of,
Definitions.
No, definitions of certain terms that get used that, you know, maybe everybody else knows what they mean, but I sure as hell didn't. A committee versus an agency.
we
Same
have
difference.
dis-
definitions.
Yeah.
we have discussed that and getting very specific
Yeah.
on certain words.
Like shall.
Shall,
Shall.
require.
So that was one thought. One thought on warrants. I know it says that the warrants for the town meeting have to be in a newspaper with 14 days before the meeting. Do we really have to still use newspapers in this day and age? Because 14 days puts some pressure on getting that out. Can it strictly be electronic? But these, you don't have to answer. These are just crazy thoughts.
Well, actually, I would ask Anita Doucette, who was the town clerk here for 150 million years. Anita, does it still have to go? Do you know if it still has to go in the newspaper, or can you just have the posting just electronically?
Well, when I sat, I think in that previous hat that I wore, they had to have it in both places.
Okay.
Because not everybody has a laptop, but they would receive a newspaper, so it kind of covers your bases that way. But legally, things could have changed between then and now.
Check.
We'll take a look at that, Mary,
Okay.
and see what Mass General Law says, if it's still required.
You're our MGL guy, so.
Yeah, I can check it out.
Proposed operating expenditure, you want sections probably, right? Chapter,
Would help. Yeah.
chapter 2, section 8, all proposed operating expenditures shall be included in a single article in the town meeting warrant. We got into a bit of a brouhaha on that one when we were adding positions, and they were not separate articles, but they were in one article in the budget article. I don't think it's clear that that's not sufficient to have it, and frankly, just to make that meeting smoother, quicker, I would say have it in the budget article, but like we did with those positions, underneath it's spelled out, and whoever spoke to the fact that included in the above is a new, I believe it was the housing advocate and the
There was like 5 or 6 of them.
cultural center director, and it gave the numbers for each one of them, but they were in the total. It just moves it a little smoother, but I know that was a brouhaha.
I think we have, as a committee, we have consensus on putting words in the charter that has all new jobs. There's a section in the charter that says, any new positions can't be hired until town meeting funds it.
Right,
We're putting in the words, separate article
okay,
for all ads.
So-
Separate article, there has to be numbers there.
okay. So you want it in addition to in the budget? Okay, that's fine.
I don't
Go
think
ahead.
under that plan that would be in the budget. I think the initial year would be funded in an article outside the budget, and then the following year it would be in the budget.
So if it got approved, then it would get added to the budget?
Correct.
Okay, all right. Am I still on the same? Yeah, chapter 3, 2A, section 2, 3-2-3 talks about, the select board shall not normally administer the day-to-day affairs of the town.
We are,
Can we highlight that?
we are
Maybe have
proposing,
posters?
we have
What's illegal?
proposed removing normally.
Was this gonna be a should and an always?
Shall,
Shall.
required.
Yeah, okay, good.
There was a good discussion about that.
I bet it was a very lively one.
Actually,
No,
I think
actually-
we all
We
pretty
all
much
agreed.
agreed.
Oh,
Yeah.
good. Section 7 is, the same, prohibitions, talks again, that the, selectmen are not to give orders to employees.
Yep.
That's covered under the same, situation. Oh, where am I? You know, the other thing that would be helpful, so at the top of the page, you know what article you're in, so I don't have to go flipping back. Chapter 4 is in the bottom of page C8. It's under I. Convene regular meetings of the management advisory
That's
team.
gone.
And that's gone.
That's gone? All right. You guys are, I don't know why you invited me.
We knew you were coming, so
Yeah,
we did
right,
this
yeah,
ahead of.
yeah.
I don't know why you're not watching our meetings.
You know, when I retired, I said, that's enough meetings, Mary. Only because Lou was very gracious did I come here.
The department, the Public Works Department requested, they said in 15 years, there hasn't been a management advisory team.
Okay,
They said, make that go away.
Gone.
cool. Section 6, and this is just more really a question. The town administrator has the authority to issue warrants for the payment of town funds. Why wouldn't that be the finance director?
Where are you?
I am on section 6.
6 what?
64-6-1,
6
page C9.
dash,
So it's
4
chapter
dash 1.
4.
Page?
9.
4-6-1. I just wondered why that's, and I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other.
Responsibilities for
but-
disbursements.
I think that's basically just signing the bill schedules, which actually back in the day, the select board used to do. You need at least 3 signatures to
To pay a
sign
bill?
a bill schedule.
Yeah, we could add, yeah.
The point being that at least people were aware of what, and if there was a question about some kind of an expenditure. So since the buck stops entirely with the town administrator on all things, that it seems rational to have him at least have an opportunity to look at those bill schedules before they
Okay.
go out.
But we could add that last sentence. In the event of a vacancy, that may be signed by and get rid of the person or persons designated by the select board, finance director.
Maybe to think about that one.
Okay.
Only because if it's a,
Usually they designate somebody on the select board to do it.
but we have now a finance director. Would that be the
We
appropriate
have a
person?
finance director then, too.
Is it kind of an oversight, like a secondary set of eyes?
Well, 'cause that's the select board.
That's basically the point.
Yeah.
You know, If you've got, if you're not attaching it to the person, but you're attaching it to the job, you may or may not have a really competent finance director. So it, I think, makes sense to have at least one second pair of eyes on these things as they go through the pipe.
I just, go back to the do your job thing. Well, if they're not hiring a good finance director, it's someone's issue. And finance director's dealing with the day-to-day and the warrants, dealing with all the issues.
Good question for Jay when we talk to him.
Mhm.
Yeah, it is, that's great.
And he would like to come in and chat with us.
That would be wonderful.
Section 410(1), we're now talking about the assistant town administrator. And I think it's pretty clear
11.
that, page 11, sorry. The assistant town administrator, from time to time as necessary, shall perform the duties of town administrator until, hang on, where am I going here? Let me just try it in words. When the town administrator is gone, as we just had the situation, and the assistant town administrator steps in temporarily until you get an interim or whatever, I think this says that person has full authority. And I wouldn't want to see another debacle like kicking Larry off the housing trust for 3 or 4 months while we duke around with it. Our assistant town administrator should have had full authority. If she had to go in and affirm, I still affirm the previous TA's choice, and Larry stays.
And I think that there are going to be some, I think they're talking about some changes to the Housing Trust document. To make some changes, Brendan?
So there's a recent opinion from KP Law, and Tony Schiavi has it, and Don Howell has it as well, where it says exactly that. The assistant town administrator, if they're acting, they have the full
Full
powers.
authority.
So that's already been sorted. But
Good.
there is an opinion that Tony has. It's been, it's
And-
floating around. So
And our TA had it when she was in charge for that month or 6 weeks.
well, she would have, but we didn't get that opinion till after that.
Right.
Till after Megan
Right.
left. If you're referring
Right.
to Megan, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is just another comment on the definitions, the difference between divisions and departments.
Yes, we're going to be, already in our red line, we've put together what the divisions are, that this division
Yeah,
is this, and this department.
cool.
Because it was very confusing as to why some things were in there, some weren't.
Yeah. And I think that is it. And the only thing in general, the biggest thing to me is keeping the select board out of the day-to-day business and not micromanaging and making, in fact, I ran into our new town administrator over at the community center and we chatted a bit. And, we chatted because he said, where are you headed? I told him, I'm going home to have dinner and then coming here. He said, oh, that's good. So I said, I almost think we're big enough to be a town manager, but maybe not. But he said, it doesn't really matter as long as what the title is, as long as you have the authority spelled out. So I just encourage you to make it very clear that your town administrator has the full authority.
And that's something that the commission has talked about, is making sure that we have the words that gives the town administrator the authority to do whatever has to be done. And it is correct that there's nothing in Mass General Law anywhere else that defines town manager versus town administrator.
Oh.
It is purely based on the job description and the responsibilities and authority that are given to that person.
Great.
So I know I did some research on that, because as everybody was saying, we need a town manager. Well, I couldn't find a definition in anywhere, so I talked to the Mass Organization for Towns. I talked to two towns where they share a school department, and the two towns, one's a town manager, one's a town administrator, and their responsibilities are virtually identical. So the title doesn't do
Doesn't
anything.
Your consultant was nodding along with you as you were saying that,
Yeah.
so.
So I know that they've gone through the same thing, that there is no legal definition It's sort of like workforce housing. There isn't a definition of that.
Yeah. Okay, that's it for me. I thank you for all that you've done.
Can we ask you a question, Mary?
What's that?
Madam Chair, may I ask a
You
question?
can go right ahead.
Notice how I did that?
Yes. You're being polite. Your wife is here.
You betcha.
He doesn't behave like this normally.
So you made a very important point, and I want to get back to it, which is select board getting out of the day-to-day. So tell me, based on your experience, what are the 3 things that you say you would have liked to have done and you did do that weren't day-to-day? So what is high level?
Hell, I don't know.
But that's what you want.
I don't know. Some of the, certainly the budget, the warrant, pulling all that together, that's high level. Certainly what Anita and her cohorts have just gone through in hiring a town administrator, or we went through multiple times hiring a finance director.
Can I interject in this?
Sure.
If I can, Madam Chair. Not what you have done. What were things that you may have wanted to accomplish, but was never brought up, was never discussed?
Oh,
Is that to the point that you were looking for?
I'm looking really for our definitions of what they're going to be in the
I
future,
I know
in
you
terms of we've taken the town administrator, and we pretty well understand the role.
Yeah,
We've talked about the select board
and higher level.
on this side and high level, but the question is, what is high
What is
level?
No, I know exactly what you're going.
I'm gonna have to think about that, what
have my
I,
email.
what I would have you know, the reason I ran and why I wanted to get involved was to improve communication on the board, because I felt they were just arguing for the sake of argument, and some of them were clearer communicators than others, and I thought, I think I could help there. Well, that was a foolish notion. And the other thing I wanted to do was to help with housing. I wanted to help, and I don't feel that we've done that much with housing. We're finally getting there. We've got 2, well, we've got more than 2. We've got some smaller ones and 2 decent-sized ones going. So that's,
It's okay. So one more question, if I may. So how would you feel about having select board meetings only twice a month?
I think that makes a lot of sense. The staff needs time to prepare, which is why I totally didn't understand why they stayed weekly through the summer. That was a chance for the staff to get caught up. It takes them a lot of time to, and a lot of it's just clerical, but a lot of it's some brain power, sorting things out. I would go twice a month, and if there's some emergency thing, you have an emergency meeting.
And you wouldn't mind doing a 3 or 4 hour meeting if necessary?
I wouldn't, no, rather
Well,
than
they're 4 or
every
5
week
now.
to,
Tell that to our chairman.
the chairman.
There is no chairman, there is a chair. I am not a man.
Ooh.
Chair, tell me.
Don't seem to be able to get this through to the dinosaurs.
I hear ya.
Those guys are on that side. But
Yeah, right. Says the guy with the
Hey,
Not
hey.
all of us, not all
no,
of
the
us.
man.
Will you stand up for us, please?
I don't think
No.
so.
No.
Absolutely
We need some help.
not. No,
But
not on this one.
one more thing, if I may, Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
What if one of those meetings, let's assume you have 2 meetings
Yeah.
where you discuss business, which would really force some streamlining of the agenda. The second thing, what if there were 1 meeting a month where it was an open agenda where the public could come in and speak up on whatever?
Is that in addition to the 2?
Yes.
And then do they not get to speak at the other 2 meetings?
I would be fine with that. That 2 minutes, you really can't get an idea
Yeah.
across.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Not clear if this is charter.
Right.
What's
For
that?
the- It's not clear that this discussion is for charter words.
I
Okay.
don't think it's up to the charter.
It's not up to the
determine
charter.
how the selectmen conduct and
Operate.
compose their meetings.
Yeah.
That's
I
up
mean,
to
that's
them.
really up to
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, you're right.
Go ahead.
Mary, we were talking about having 2 town meetings a year. In the spring, the regular one, and then in the fall, special, how did we?
No, just
articulate
regular,
it?
2 regular
Just 2 regular,
town
but
meetings.
One mostly dedicated to the financial budget and money articles, not excluding other things if they were needed, and the fall town meeting designated to mostly deal with zoning, bylaw, that sort of
Planning, et cetera.
planning and that sort of thing, so that they, people can get their heads around finances in May and their heads around zoning in the fall, and possibly more people will be able to attend who typically aren't here yet in May, too.
We were thinking that maybe, we've been thinking that maybe it might get more people to the town meetings if it was one night as opposed to 2 to 3.
One night.
Each time.
Each time,
Yeah.
yeah, as opposed to 2 or 3 nights in a row.
The
Yeah.
87 charter stipulated 2 town meetings, and we did it that way for quite a number of years. There was a rewrite, was it 2016? I'm forgetting
It was
when it was
12.
done. 2012? Some of these things were changed. I don't know why. I wasn't involved in that at the time, but the 2 town meetings made a lot of sense, and it was easier on the staff, too.
Right, right. That makes sense to me. I
So
always
we-
wondered why we just had one where that warrant is so huge. I hadn't thought of how to break it out, but it's just like, couldn't we somehow do this?
And it
Some
can,
towns
We did.
do 2 a year,
We
right?
did for
we did
years.
for years.
We did for years.
And it happens similar to what, it happened actually this week at
This
select
is
board meeting.
allergies, I'm not committed
Select board
to.
meeting went long, so a lot of the things at the end of the agenda, well, let's get through it quick. And you don't want a town meeting, well, stay, let's get through these last 5 or 6 articles. And they're not given the due diligence that are necessary.
Right.
Where you have 2 town meetings, you can split, instead of having 60, 70 articles in one in the spring, you could have 50 and 20 or whatever, 45 and 25.
It would probably be easier to educate the voters too,
More
because
time to
you'd have a
concentrate.
lot less,
Yeah, that's a good point.
yeah, I like
Because
that.
because a lot of the bylaws, in an article that's spending money, it's pretty clear, do you want to buy this truck or not? But the changes to a bylaw, when you get something that's fairly extensive, there really needs to be more time to educate people as to what is the purpose of this change, not just seeing it printed in the warrant.
Right. That makes sense to me.
Good.
One
So we are-
down, 12,942 to go.
So we appreciate
Okay,
you coming,
thank you.
Mary, very much.
I appreciate the invitation,
Thank you.
although I don't really enjoy going out at night anymore, unless it's perhaps to some restaurant.
So I can need 3 town meetings, one that just focuses on petition articles.
Not a bad idea.
We're running a $50+ million enterprise here. We spend 15 minutes on spending all that money up front, and then we hear an hour's worth of trees. I'm not picking on trees, but I'm just saying that kind of thing.
By the way, it's 82 million these days.
If you combine it all, yeah, but I mean, no, it's not chump change anymore.
No, sir.
I just spud off, I believe in a strong town administrator. I think, the comments about selectmen's meetings and whatnot, and not dealing with the day-to-day stuff. I think we should offload from the selectmen things like licensing. I think that should be an authority. I remember being a selectman, and every year, I forget when it was, in April or something, you get a stack this high of these little certificates that said, sign off on Joe's bubblegum machine, and it's like, what are you doing?
You got it.
That kind of stuff. You get complaints that come in, and in the last couple of years, you see a lot of noise complaints and whatnot from Harwich Port. It would seem to me if you had some kind of a regulatory board that had, like, the police chief and maybe, 3 or 4 other people, not selectmen, but other people, let them deal with that stuff. And if there's some huge issue that comes up that you gotta take the board of selectmen, like you're actually gonna shut them down or something, or, make a move to Chatham or something, then maybe it gets elevated. I do think the selectmen, when you look at the packets that come out online, it's like, oh my God, there's so much material in there. Can't there be a way to get rid of some of that stuff so the town administrator and his staff can deal with it, as opposed to having everything come to the board of selectmen? It's like, why do we have to keep our fingers in everything? let's put our hands in our pockets and say, okay, we are the board of directors for this corporation, basically. And the town administrator is the chief executive officer. Let him or her do their job and not, try and influence that other than what's the policy, what's the strategy, what's the strategic thinking about going on, and let the town administrator do all the tactical work with his staff. I mean, that's what I would advocate for. I would not mind consideration for term limits on Board of Selectmen. I think that 3 terms might be appropriate. I know myself, I got stale after 3 years, and it was like, okay, time to get out of Dodge.
Peter, can I interrupt on that one? Do
Yeah.
you believe it just for the select board or for all boards and committees?
I think you have to look at that individually. I'll just pick on your
Sure.
assessor's thing. I think that takes a very specific skill set.
Mhm.
And you know better than I do, there's a lot of training that goes with that. That might be too difficult for that group to handle, but in most cases, I would like to see that. So if someone's on a planning board, you have to pick a timeline, because after 6 or 8 years, they maybe should get off. Now, maybe they can come back after a year or two or something, but there should be a break. And I definitely think that the chairmanship should rotate, because what you're trying to do with chairman is you're trying to train your bench. You're trying to get the bench up to speed, so when the day comes when you're not there as the chairperson, somebody else can, take over and be comfortable dealing with, public meetings and that kind of thing. I don't know whether that means no more than 2 consecutive years. Maybe 1 year is too stringent, but I would like to see something like that. And I'm not picking on him, but like with CBC, Dave's been there for quite a while. Maybe somebody else should try it, just to see how it goes. I don't know. I do think that there needs to be a closer link between the finance director and the finance committee. The last couple of years under the previous administration, every piece of information we wanted, even if it was the time of day, had to go through the town administrator and file a formal request to get that information, which he may or may not decide to send to the finance director. I think the finance director needs to be an ad hoc member of the finance committee, in my opinion.
And just, can we,
I think
we have addressed those things
Okay.
and creating at least something, whether it's policy or charter, of access to employees. What is the policy for finance wants the latest budget, the latest whatever, charts.
Yeah.
That, there's a policy that it's not held up because, well, we don't want to give those guys, we don't like that finance committee chair, so we're not going to give them that information. So we've talked about that, and then we've had actually pretty substantial discussion when the finance committee was in about, potential finance director attending meetings, et cetera. So
And it doesn't have to be every meeting, but, every other meeting and, free flow of information, if you will.
Sure.
Um, And by the way, some information is not available, we're told, so it's kind of interesting. I find myself in a position with the finance committee, we may actually be filing some of my requests for public information
Yeah,
release.
that's
I
ridiculous.
know, it's ridiculous, it is,
Yeah.
it's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
But it's a throwback to, we were basically grinding up finance directors,
Yeah.
for the last couple of years, and no stability, so I think that's,
I think we have a good one.
huh?
I think we have a good one now.
I think we do. If I look at, I'll just say this, I think that she's very focused and she's very fundamentally sound in spreadsheets and what that leads to for charts and graphs and visuals that people can understand. So I think it's gonna be a good fit. I think we've already figured out a few holes where, maybe she doesn't quite understand this or that, municipal stuff and munis and whatnot, but you'll learn. I mean, she's very focused on,
Well, plus she's
trying to
coming in at
satisfy.
an extraordinarily busy time, too.
oh, I know.
Hey, figure it out. Peter, we have talked about, and we're going to be proposing moving the budget to the middle of January from the middle of February, and just moving it back a month, which would give everybody more time to look at it and think about it.
Yeah, I think the biggest concern I have about the budget, quite frankly, is how accurate numbers are. What I mean by that is, if you read the Chronicle article today about the school, they said, we threw in 15.5% for medical insurance. the town has something like 5.5% in theirs. Well, the answer hopefully is not 15.5, but it's somewhere in the middle. But it's such a big number in both those budgets, all the budgets, including the tech school, that you almost have to know what that is before you can lock down things.
And I think the point being on that, something like that, is need to get the information. Where do we get the information? How do we know that it is factual information we're getting? Is the information available? And if it's not, how can we get the information?
I don't
Yeah.
think that information is usually not available because it just depends on the market and it depends on negotiations.
But I think for finance committee
Yeah.
and finance director, they want to know what you're recommending 5%, you're recommending 15%. What's the basis that you're discussing those?
I'd go with the conservative 15, just so you have that
Yeah.
buffer.
Well, I think you all know
Come
that
back,
there's a
yeah.
group that gets together on a county level,
Yeah.
you know, and we're represented, not we, but the finance committee, but I mean, the town is represented as well, to talk about these issues and try and work through those things, so.
Mary's,
It's a tough one.
Mary's been trying to put 2 cents in,
I just wanted
Come
to
on up.
talk to,
so we can get to the microphone.
oh,
Pull another chair up, please.
Yeah, come on, Johnny, come on.
Nita, you might as well come up too.
I just wanted to comment, I really liked Peter's idea about term limits for selectmen. I think that's a great idea. I don't know that I would do that to committees. I don't know if you remember, but one of the things I did for a while was rattle off the committees that needed, we have such a hard time getting people on committees. I don't know that I'd want to put term limits on there. We might have
That's-
empty committees.
That's what we've struggled
Yeah.
with on that, as to the number of committees that, and it would be nice if the select board would start reading off or publishing the open committees again, because that was really good when you guys were doing
I
that.
stopped because when I started, there were 30 openings, and 3 or 4 months later, there were still 30 openings. I said, well, this is stupid. We're just wasting time listening to me.
But we should have it somewhere on the website.
So the way you
So
solve that
Peter-
is to give everybody that participates in the high-level committee a slip down at Zacatawka Harbor.
Yeah,
You get
Here
so
we
many
go.
people, you get so many people running or signing up, you won't believe it.
that idea.
I'll do it.
Peter, I'm going to ask you to think on your feet a second.
All right,
Let's go back to a statement you made which is, when we go to town meeting. Very short period of time is spent on basically an $80 million budget. And we all vote and then move on to a $3,000 item, 20 minutes. So what is the root of that? And Paul and I have been struggling. We are on the subcommittee. I think we've reached some conclusions. That part of the reason that is because it's difficult to wrap your head in a 2 or 3 week period, or sitting at town meeting, around an $80 million budget and what it means and where it's going. And so one of our proposals is that outside of the budget, working very closely with the finance committee, that a piece is put together that says basically, as an example, last year's budget was 70 million, this year it's 80 million. That $10 million difference, what does it mean to you, the taxpayer, in terms of dollars? So the things are spelled out in terms of costs to what does it mean to you, going back to the benefit, going back to the individual, rather than, gee, this is 10 million, the fire truck is, $5 million. Well, I don't know what $5 million is, but I do know that $300 a month or $3 a quarter means in my taxes. So that,
yeah.
would that be possible?
I think at town meeting, one of the topics is the finance committee chairman typically gives the report, right, on the budget.
Yep.
There are no graphics, there are no presentations, screens or displays on the wall or anything. If I just start rattling off numbers, it's just numbers. It's like soup.
Yep.
But I don't know if you guys saw it. The report that was done for last year from the finance department, Tony and Jen put together, was very comprehensive. If that same document could be presented at the start of town meeting, displayed, maybe you need 6 of those screens around, whatever it is. It's a wealth of information. It gives people confidence that the town has its debt limit under control, that the numbers are better than what you might think as an individual, that there is a plan in place that says, hey, our spending is controlled. But if you're down here worrying about the fire truck, you know, it's hard to understand that, okay? But I think if given the opportunity and the means to project things so that people can actually see visuals, because that presentation is very powerful. And one of the things that impressed me most about Jen is that she can produce those and they make a lot of sense. They make a lot of sense.
And what we're trying to deal with is getting away from the individual and saying this document's going to be around for a lot of years. She may not be here. So what can we codify in the document that would make that
Well, there has to
happen?
be an annual report that's put together by the finance team that says this, that summarizes what's going on.
Is it the finance or is it the budget director? Who should put this together for the citizens?
Well, I think that the town administrator is responsible for it, but his finance director has to put it together.
FYI, they used to, in town meeting, every article was broken down by how much it was adding to the tax rate.
Isn't that
Yeah.
great? Yep.
Yeah.
For years it was that. I
And,
think
and
when-
if nothing more, there's a table in there, it says
Right.
for every million or whatever it is
Exactly.
you
My only
spend.
concern is just saying, oh, well, here's the difference of last year. Well, we're not gonna vote that. We're gonna go back to last year. Well, you just wiped out 30 employees by doing that. You know,
Yeah.
we're gonna be very careful when you do a budget. Majority of people don't understand it.
That's what correct.
You do. You come from a business background, same thing. Others don't. And you have to be careful in how it's presented because you need to run the town.
Yep.
And it's really simple. Bundle of services, what do you want to pay for? And if you don't want to pay, and you want to bring that down, then you got to reduce those bundle of services.
Or the other thing from a positive perspective is, I can plan as an individual on what I am going to be expected to pay in 2 or 3 years. That is the key that I think isn't given now.
And that's why Proposition 2.5 was put in place, to
Mhm.
say that budget should be going up approximately 2.5% for years. And if you don't want to do that, and you want to watch your pennies, you have to do an override otherwise. That's where the planning, and that, again, I think there's a lack of, I don't want to use the word information, but communication. You know, like, again, you stand up there and just start spouting off numbers, people are looking at their phones. They're
Yeah.
not listening.
Yeah.
But if there is like the budget that she did, or the handout she had, when Jen presented that to the select board, and everyone can follow along and say, oh yeah, I can see that chart, I can see that. They understood it.
And by the way, half of us are running around with iPads.
Yeah, yeah.
Encourage people to bring their iPad. Tell them, okay, pull it up, go on this. And if you don't want to look up there, look here, and you have the same presentation. And we do have some technology around that can help us all
Sure.
get better at this, you know.
That's good.
Good points.
Thank
The
you.
other thing I would say is on the capital plan, I think in the last couple of years, there's been a big effort in jumping the capital plan. It used to be, way back when, where, you know, it's a 5-year plan. When you first came up with an idea, unless, or a concept, unless it was an emergency, you got in year 5 and you worked your way up. You didn't just, I need to do this, so let's make me number 2. You know, that discipline,
Thank
that
you.
discipline, huh?
I said, thank you.
Well, no, I made it 7 years and you took back 2 years, so I'm not happy about that. But the concept,
It's 5 years to start with.
the
Ask
concept
Dana.
of planning that way, unless it's an emergency, I think that needs to be reinforced, you know?
But also what needs to be reinforced too, is you can put out all of the charts, all of the information you want, and if the public doesn't read it or look at it, there's not a whole lot more you can do. I mean, how do we get people to actually, they may not read through the whole warrant, all 30 articles. However, how can we get people, should we have sessions where we explain that one page that says this is what's happening? Do we have sessions that we tape and let people watch?
Call it pre-town meeting.
We used to
Pre-town
do it.
meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
from the
You
chambers.
walk-
We
yeah, you-
also
yeah,
used
you
to
walk
do.
through it.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
did it.
I
Yes,
think
they
that
will
stopped because people weren't coming to them.
We used to, actually, at the end, we televised it live. And what we would do to engage people was we would take call-in questions. So when we did a pre-town meeting and someone says, well, I've got a question on the budget, you know, okay, well, we'd have the finance director. We had, actually, the majority of the leadership of the town there at the pre-town meeting. And by doing it live and doing with the call-in questions, it was great. You know, it was engaging. And so, yes, people don't want to come out at night unless they're going to a nice restaurant. But if you want to sit at home and watch a pre-town meeting, I would love to see it again.
How long ago was pre-town meeting done?
Goodness
'Cause
gracious,
I've
so I
been
was
he-
president when we built the information
15
center.
years ago?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean-
it's
Yeah.
probably 15 years ago.
Because I've been here for 24 years owning our property, or is it 25, I
Well-
forget. And I can tell you, I never heard about
The
pre-town
last time
meeting.
we did it was in the old high school gym, is where we had it.
Auditorium?
Auditorium.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't, it was the gym.
In the gym?
The gym, because we had the big tables up
Yeah,
front,
yeah.
so that, and we chose probably half of the warrant to actually have the presenters present, and then have a discussion. Town administrator was there, the select board was there, and they would go through it, and as a question would come in, the moderator, and I moderated a couple of years, well, okay, well, we have a question on the budget. Okay, well, the finance director, Dave Bryan at one point was there.
Yeah.
It was a great, it prepared people for town meeting, so that they weren't getting those questions for the first time, the first night of town meeting.
So why did it stop?
It was chamber sponsored, and I was no longer, Peter was no longer with the chamber. Subsequent boards
I
did
think
not
we had
follow.
people involved in the chamber who weren't involved in the town,
Yeah.
as far as government
Correct,
goes.
yeah.
So it kind of,
I
Kinda
think
like-
Earlier on, we did.
I think
but
it-
you know, last year when we had in this very room, the public hearing for the budget with the finance committee, you were the only one that showed up.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's been historically what it is, nobody shows up, you know.
I think it also, it would be also another good argument for splitting the town meeting.
Right, oh, yeah.
Because I think part of the problem, and it's, you know, mixed with, is that you get so focused on the big zoning issues or the, you know, all of these bylaw and charter changes or what have you, that the budget kind of gets lost. And if
Absolutely.
people could really be more focused on those issues and the town could focus more on educating on those issues, I think it would help. It might not, you know, get thousands to come, but I think more people would be engaged at that point where
Yeah,
they
it
had a
might-
chance
It
to.
might be worthwhile to try a session where you get the multi-purpose room over in the community center and just say, hey, we're gonna talk about the budget and the warrant to some extent, and have a discussion and see where it takes us.
When we first moved here, there was a Harwich Taxpayers Association.
Yep,
And I
and they
know
were
I
very
went,
active, but.
and they were very active, and I went to a couple of their sessions over at the multipurpose room at the community center, and they were talking about specific budget items or articles and stuff, and it was it was well done. But you need somebody to do it. Mary?
I wanted to go back to the capital plan, and I agree to move up to year one, you know, off the bat should be an emergency and has to be handled. But I also think, you know, when you create a plan for 5 years, you only know what you know at that point in time. And I think it's incumbent on, this is probably one of the big ticket items for the capital outlay, and then the selectmen, is to weigh, do we have these 5 years worth of stuff in the right years, or should we shift them? I don't think it should be a lock, because I don't know from today what I'm gonna need in 5 years.
It hasn't been a lock. It supposedly requires a 2/3 vote to move anything around in the 4 out years.
In the sequencing.
And that can be done, and if the cause is just, the voters will vote for that. But at least it makes it harder to jump the line. You don't want to make it impossible, because there are going to be those times when you need to, but you've got to make it harder.
But yet you read through, because I read through all of the capital outlay projects that were proposed, and basically most of them were high-level number ones. Well, they're not all number ones.
Right.
They can't be.
They can't
Well,
be.
You can't afford to do everything at once.
No.
And by the way, you end up with a situation where things get backed up, and we vote and approve projects that don't get done for several years, or things we don't buy for several years, just because we can't handle it, you know? Yeah, the money's squirreled away there, but we do injustice by, you know, holding up that money, because we can't spend it effectively.
I think that our prior assistant town administrator did a great job on actually putting everything on a list.
Yeah.
And I don't think that was in existence prior to that. Excuse me, sinus stuff. But there actually was everything on a list, what article funded it, its status,
Yeah.
and that list has gone down considerably because a little sunlight.
Well, and sometimes there's a temptation, if you have enough free cash, to say, let me move myself up because I know we have free cash. Let's do it that way, because I only have to get a vote of town meeting,
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to go out to a ballot question or something
Yes.
like that. So there is a temptation sometimes to do that.
But this year, at least, the general consensus is not utilizing free cash for operations.
Oh,
And-
definitely, I would,
And,
Ever.
yeah. and
I would
they-
put that right in the charter, actually. You know,
And actually, I mean, that's a
Probably would.
select board policy that goes back many, many years,
I know.
because the select board at the time got caught up in their shorts on that one, that they were using free cash for operating expenses, and there wasn't enough free cash, and it was a hoop-de-doo.
Yeah,
So I
free
remember
cash is
that.
great when you have it, but when it starts to dry up, it's not fun.
I was on the board when there was one year where we had no free cash. It was a really fast town meeting, we didn't have any money to spend. It was very helpful. But it was, yes, we had, and in fact, I think we had negative free cash. Paul?
Rita, how about the time period for handling the budget? And one of the things that we came up with in our subcommittee anyway was to, when the town administrator presents the budget to the select board, the budget, the charter requires that that be done by the second Tuesday in February or something. And then on the fourth Tuesday, the select board, who supposedly has reviewed the budget that was submitted on a draft basis, made any changes, and then it goes to the finance committee for, by the fourth week in February. I guess a couple of things. One is, we're thinking about suggesting that the town administrator present the budget, comprehensive budget, to the select board and the finance committee at the same time. Understanding that the select board may make changes to that would eventually get to the finance committee, but the finance committee would have 2 more weeks anyway to see preliminarily at least what's in the budget. Does that make a difference to you? Does the additional time help in terms of moving the process along?
Okay, so this year, my understanding is on Monday night, the selectmen voted to release the budget to the finance committee.
Yeah.
The reality of it is, we've had the budget, I mean, because it's a public document. We just don't know after Monday night what they actually did or didn't do, any adjustments they might have made. So we've had a budget to at least be thinking about, noodling about, finding out where we have concerns or issues or whatnot. I will say this year, Tony and the staff did a great job. I mean, it's unbelievable compared to last year. I mean, it's just, I can't tell you.
You mean-
We're trying to
you
stay
mean
away
the
from what happened in
binder
the
that had
past, yeah.
This,
Huh?
the binder like this that had 20 sheets in it?
Yeah,
And did you have it in January, the budget?
unofficially.
Yeah, but that's what we talked about for charter, pushing it back officially.
If you
to
get
Jan-
somebody, with the finance director we have in place and new town administrator, as long as they work it, they can get it to you.
Well, that's the point of codifying it, so that it's in the charter, that it goes to the finance committee by January.
Right, right.
So it's not whether we have a good TA, bad TA, good finance director, bad,
And,
it's in the charter.
and I would say, you might wanna think about, and I forget the timeline of when the board of selectmen have to give the town administrator the budget message.
That's the same date, the second Tuesday in February.
The
no,
budget
no.
message.
The budget message and the budget the
No.
same day?
No, the budget message is done like in October.
In October.
Well, but in the charter, it doesn't say that.
No, it does.
That's
Well,
the,
it
It does give a date
Two
for the
different
budget.
budgets.
the town administrator does a
Yeah.
budget report and a presentation with the budget. That's not the budget,
The budget
Message.
message from the board of selectmen are
Right.
things like no new positions,
Yeah.
you know, live within 2.5%, you know, those kinds of things. It should be like, here's the strategy going forward, not saying, well, don't buy new pencils. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, that kind of thing. So,
we are proposing that it get moved back to the middle of January. Presentation to both select board and finance committee, same time. Everything gets released at
yeah,
the same
and
time.
and let me say
It's not a
this, that
secret.
in my
It's
opinion,
not a secret, no.
in my opinion, in the old days, just because I'm old, not you guys, but, you know, we would have almost every board and committee and department come before us, and we did all-day sessions on Saturday and all that kind of stuff, so that everybody came before us. I think if you look at the comprehensive nature of the way this budget was put together, I think a lot of those questions sort of go away. Like, it's so comprehensive that it answered like 90% of my questions. So I don't feel a need to, quite frankly, the way it's structured. to have the fire department come and spend an hour with us. Now, we can, because if some members on our committee, finance committee, wanna delve into it, they can. But, you know, we used to have to pull out like, oh, how many runs did you have, how many were fires, how many were ambulance runs, how many times you had to go to the hospital, blah, 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 what was overtime? All that stuff is pretty well spelled out in the way this budget was put together, which gives you a
Thank you.
comfort level, you know, to say, hey, that team, they got their act together, they know what they're doing, you know? Before it was kinda like, you know, take a notebook and throw stuff in there.
Can I go back to your
Go.
question?
I was gonna let Paul
He's
continue.
gotta keep going.
And 924 says, on or before the second Tuesday in February, the town
What page, Paul?
administrator.
924?
924.
24.
Town administrator shall submit to the select board a comprehensive budget for all town functions for the ensuing fiscal year, and shall submit us to the selectmen, should be select board, but selectmen is in here, we'll change that. Select board, a budget message. So the charter currently requires that on by the second Tuesday in February, town administrator submits the budget and submits a budget message, two separate
So
documents.
his message, my
Yeah,
interpretation there, his message is, how did I take your message, Board of Selectmen, and put it into a budget? In other words, here's the budget,
yeah.
you told me or asked me to do this, 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 and this is what I did, this, and this to get here. So that the selectmen know how it evolved from when they said do this to where he got
Well,
to. That's
that-
my
yeah,
understanding.
The point, I guess, being what you're saying as well, is that this here is not really
I think you
correct.
need to call it something like a comprehensive.
Right.
report
It's
on
921.
Change the
Nine-
language.
I would suggest you go back to 921, Paul.
921, Paul. That's because
And
the
nine-
budget
922.
message has to be given before the department heads are doing their budgets for the next year. And those budgets are due by October
Yeah.
from the department heads to the town administrator. So 921, Paul addresses, shall present with a current financial assessment is what they call it. But that's by October.
I know, but I'm
But-
just
and if you
saying,
read
the
nine-
wording here is what's odd.
Yeah,
If-
exactly. But
it's-
If the budget, if we're calling this the budget message, the charter says the budget message shall be presented
there
to
we're
the
back.
select board on the second Tuesday in
There
February.
we're back to definitions.
Right.
Because 922 talks
Think
about
about
Yeah.
a
general
general policy
policy
statement.
Right.
to guide
then-
the town administrator in developing the budget request for the
Yeah.
ensuing year. There's your policy statement.
So the question is, what is the definition of a policy statement and what is the definition of a budget message?
Right.
And
So-
that's what needs to be
Right,
clarified.
wording can be changed in that. If we put it budget message, whatever we want to call
TA's, the
it.
town
Right.
administrator's budget
believe
message, in
Providence
my
Town
opinion,
lays
is
it out
how did I
beautifully.
accomplish what you
I
asked
think
me
that's
to
the one.
accomplish?
I think it's just basically changing a
Yeah,
couple of
it's
words.
right, it's definitions there.
Yeah.
We got it. 922.
But I think
And by the
for-
way, it wouldn't hurt in the charter to put a little graphic, which is a timeline of how you go from when you start this process to how you get to town meeting.
That's by law and that's policy, not charter.
So let me ask you, is the timeline that currently is in vogue, is that?
Are you talking-
Does that work?
One at a time, please. Paul, I'm sorry, would you repeat that?
I'm asking, is the timeline that we have working? Or do we need to expand that or modify certain steps that take place at certain dates to make it fit better into the process to get something? We've talked about in our subcommittee having, in essence, a financial impact statement available to the public, included in the warrant, when the warrant is published, have the statement published with it, prepared by the finance department, whatever, through the town administrator. That would have to be done by, let's say, April in order to get it into the warrant booklet.
Okay.
But is the current process appropriate, the time periods? 2 weeks for the select board to review the budget, 2 weeks to get the budget to the finance committee, roughly 4 weeks for the finance committee, basically the month of March. Finance committee reviews the budget that's been presented and returns it for the publishing in the warrant. Is
Yeah.
that a reasonable time
So,
period? Do
so
we
I
need to
think the
extend
most
that?
effective way to use the finance committee is to take the segment and say, here's the budget, and you got 6 weeks to work the budget. If you need to call people in or do whatever. And then nail that down, and then spend the rest of the time on the warrant. Because a lot of the warrant stuff is not budget,
Right,
except there might be capital plan off, but I mean operating budget.
right.
In the operating budget, you get done 3 articles. You got the 2 schools and you got the town. I mean, you're done, you spend all your money, right? So if you can lock down those numbers and then move on to the warrant, instead of trying to do the warrant at the same time you're doing the numbers,
So,
it just makes some sense.
so in terms of revising the language here in the charter, if I understand, you're suggesting you'd agree with when the select board gets the budget from the town administrator, it goes to the finance committee as well. Is
Yeah.
that fair? And are we saying then that according to you, that the budget message, or whatever you want to call it, the budget, is presented in January?
October.
I think we're
Month
getting,
of January.
I think we're getting caught up, in a couple of words. The budget we can change the wording of budget message.
Yeah,
It
I'm
is
not-
the,
I'm
I
not
think you're
talking-
getting caught up in this budget message thing.
I'm not talking about that
Look,
at
you
this
can always
point. I'm
use,
trying
you
to
can
get a
always use as much time
timeline.
as you can possibly get.
Yeah,
you know.
I'm just trying to see whether this is unrealistic from a time standpoint. The budget comes in the second week in February according to this. Do we need to make that the second week in January, let's say? Would that make things,
If I was sitting in the selectman's seat, I'd rather clean up the budget before Christmas myself.
okay?
I mean, it's probably not realistic, because then you can wipe your hands of it and say, I'm done with it, here you go, finance committee. You know, you got it,
How
but
much
it's probably not realistic.
realistically does the finance committee need to do their job properly?
We,
Right now, you've got about 4 weeks according to
so
the charter.
between starting next week, we'll be meeting at least once a week to go through budget stuff and then warrant stuff. And oftentimes it will end up being 2 and 3 times a week to get through it. So we have things like the 2 schools have to come in, you gotta coordinate
Yeah.
with them. The finance director has to come in, probably with the town administrator, acting town administrator, whatever, to work through us on budget items and whatnot. And we'll get through it, and we might have some departments we wanna bring in, just to ask things. I don't think we're talking this year about a Saturday meeting. I don't think we haven't done that in a couple of years. But again, this budget, this presentation of the budget is so comprehensive, in my opinion, that it's not gonna take us as much time as it used to get through the budget and be confident in the numbers.
And what do you see as the sort of drop dead date that you need to be done before the process continues on into publishing?
You look at the date when the warrant has to be finalized.
Can we move on?
April 1st?
Can we move on here? I think we're getting caught up here and going round
Finance
and
versus
round.
the select
Well,
board.
no, I think just he's almost there.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
He's just looking for a, like, what's a reasonable
We
date?
need to change these dates, is
So-
my
so the
point.
other-
Well,
Yeah,
Let's
I
get
think
it
the
correct
committee
to what
has
somebody
already
said.
agreed on consensus to move it
Move it up.
back to the middle of January.
All right, so
So
the
we
other-
already did that.
I withdraw my question.
So, but
can
the
I-
other thing that happens, it gets complicated, is that the finance committee has to voice its reasoning or opinion on every article. So if we're early if we run out of time, sometimes we put in what our votes are and what our opinion is. In between then and town meeting, something changes, like the selectmen caved on, I'm picking that up, but,
Yep.
on a topic. And then the warrant doesn't really reflect what we ended up doing. So it is a challenge.
So I have a question for any one of the,
Wait a minute, look. You set? Go ahead, Lou.
Yeah,
Okay,
go ahead.
Judith?
first.
no, I was just gonna say, just to follow up on what Paul was saying, I think, if I understood you correctly, you were looking for the date when they would be finished. Going through that, like, when would be a realistic date?
End of
If you
March.
could set that date.
Yeah, I mean, I have to look at the dates in the charter myself. I don't
It's-
have that
it's
in my
April.
head.
It's
Well, right now,
basic.
it looks, there's no specific date, but it appears from the language that you need to be done roughly 4 weeks before in terms of getting it published and so forth. So we're talking April 1st, let's say, if we
Yep.
assume a town meeting on May
Yep.
1st.
Yep.
So is that,
I'm okay working until the end of March. I mean, I'm already done.
but that's sufficient then?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, that's all I was trying to get. Thanks.
You know, it's interesting, just like any board or committee, the more new people you get on the board or committee, especially on the finance committee, that you need to bring up to speed and get them, you know, educated and whatnot, the more time it takes, and more crazy, not crazy, but questions that they'll ask and whatnot. If you end up with a board that's gone through it a couple of times, it gets real easy.
Any one of the previous select board members can answer this, but basically, let's assume that this year's budget is a base budget, it's well done, it's well understood. The next year, couldn't that be an exception report addition so that you have a baseline all the time, so that you're not reevaluating the whole budget? You're just looking at the exceptions. Isn't it a constant?
Well, okay, so you get into details. We haven't had a town engineer in,
Yep.
I don't know, 5, 6 years, right?
Yeah.
Probably.
The guy used to sit downstairs in that corner office, every year in the budget would insist we had to fund the position, $100,000, whatever it was, because the union said he had to. Well, it turns out when Tony came in and we asked that question, he said, no, that's not true. So if you look at this year's budget, that's gone. And,
Where's the free cash?
And engineering is all subcontracted out.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, things like that happen, and it's not as routine as you might think. You gotta check on
Well,
things.
what percentage is routine that I don't have to check on it? That's where I'm coming at. How does the process become, and it's not a discussion for this group, I'm sorry, but how does the process become less cumbersome, easier to deal with? We know we have X amount of policemen. I don't have to evaluate those X amount. They're there in the budget. Well, all I have to evaluate is increases in that particular department.
You just gotta make sure it's there.
Yeah,
I mean,
all right.
that's all. And it's something, I mean, let's pretend they came in and said, with the fire department, you know, making this up, needs a 20% increase. Well, why the hell is that? I mean, you
All
know,
right.
obviously you gotta drag those people in and say, what's going on here? You know?
I don't.
So,
Richard?
I want to go back to Lou's point. If you remember back, it's been a while since you sat on the board, but what you would consider of, if you had time, higher level thought, what are things that you would want to have accomplished as a board that you weren't able to because of the day-to-day operations you were doing, the licensing, the complaints, et cetera? We asked the same question of Mary, and I will ask the same question of Anita as well. Is there something that you would have wanted to accomplish different than the day-to-day, week-to-week items
I
on the
think that
agenda?
back in at least the last term I was on the board, which ended in 2017,
Yeah.
we were just getting into wastewater.
Yeah.
I don't think the board at that time knew enough about wastewater, was educated enough, maybe didn't have the right consultants to really effectively figure out what is this thing over 40 years. We just didn't have the time to do it. And
Long-term planning.
we ended up, you know, going with Chatham on an agreement, which is, I think is fine. I was one of the principals negotiating that, but I think it worked out okay for the town.
Thank you.
But we probably should have not gotten as scared as people were telling us we had to be about the what was the name of the law group?
Yeah, conservation law.
Conservation
Law
and Law
Foundation.
Foundation. It was threatening everybody with, we're gonna sue your butts off, and, you know, it's gotta be done, and blah, 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 so you gotta jumpstart something and getting something going. You know, looking more strategically as to, okay, what's it look like more than 5 years out there, you know, that kind of thing.
Just clarify, not enough time to deal with that type of long-term planning, strategic thinking?
Yeah, because we had
Yeah.
they handed off to an engineering firm, VHB or whatever at that time, and they come back and maybe every 3 months you hear from whatnot. But you don't really have the time to go figure out what does this really mean? And what do we have to do? And by the way, what are the costs, you know, to the average person that's gotta hook up to this thing? And, you know, what are the operational costs gonna, and by the way, where are we gonna fit it within town government to run it? You know, we have a wastewater department or whatever now, but, you know, maybe it could have been a different way. I don't know, maybe it could have been subcontracted, I don't know. So-
And if we could, I'd love to ask the same question to one of our current select board members.
Oh, I'm very new to the board, and if you're talking about in, like, day-to-day, I don't get in the middle of anything. I stay very much on the outside. We have
But
a
if you had a wish of not dealing with those day to day, are there things that you would like to see the board as again, as a whole, doing?
Well, I guess I hadn't thought about it that much because I'm not really that involved. And I choose not to be that involved as a select board member. Like Peter asked me, you know, have I gotten complaints about certain things? Nope.
Snow plowing.
No, I wasn't gonna mention it, but no, I mean, I'm not, I view the role as a select person as, I think somebody said it a few minutes ago, it's like being, like, on the, it's the executive board, but like a
Board of Directors.
board of directors, that's right. Board of directors don't get involved in the day-to-day of anything. You know, if I have a question or if I have something going on, I'll check with the chair of our board and then, or I'll check with Tony. Like I said, I'm very new to the board right now. I have an idea of how, I mean, I sat on the bylaw charter review committee for over 20 years. So I have a pretty good idea of the way the charter is supposed to go. But I like, you know, and I've had many years, you know, with the other hat that I wore for
Sure.
years. So I know how government is supposed to run. And I respect the board's position, but I don't get involved in the day-to-day.
Okay, so hearing, Mary, if I could go back to you, hearing both Peter and Anita, rethinking that question, is there something now that you think that you might want to have done as a board that you weren't able? Peter talked about not having time to
Yeah.
do some of that long-term planning and
Yeah, that
Strategic.
really resonated with me because the short stint I had, we didn't do any of that. I mean, some simple things like looking at staffing and do we have the right staff? You know, maybe we do, but I don't know. We've never really looked at it. Do we need different types of staff? I don't know. But
because you didn't have
because
the
we
time
didn't,
to discuss it.
we weren't operating
At that level.
Sandy's been chomping at the bit here.
Well, I think the conversation that I was trying to get wound up was mostly over with, and that had to do with the finance. But I will say, and I think that previously we have come to a general consensus of trying to actually even work back to the 87 timeline, which was all earlier and worked very well.
Which was all what?
Right.
Earlier, the original 87 charter.
Oh,
Right.
Those
Mid-January.
timelines were earlier. And again, I don't know why they were changed, because it seems like every year since, it's been a mad crunch ahead of town meeting for people to get the information they need. But I'm sure we'll have further discussions about that at other meetings, Paul.
Maybe you should ask Sari if you can, Sari, please produce a charter for us and see what comes out.
That's why we hired him.
That's
We
serious.
have Anthony right there.
Siri is right there.
We ask Anthony. Anthony.
Anthony, there you
Is it something new? Because,
go. It is something.
Yes.
okay, go ahead. Judith?
It's a little, not off topic, but one of the things that came up when we were talking about town meeting, and I think it's Brewster does this, the order of things in the warrant is done randomly.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
What, rapid fire, what's your reaction to that?
The
It's a
bingo
It's
balls.
a lottery.
Yeah, it's ping pong balls. They
Yeah.
have a
Yeah,
ping
machine.
pong balls.
Yeah,
Bingo.
bingo.
It keeps people on their toes,
My
doesn't it?
reaction to that is, I think you have to do the business of the town, which primarily is the budget stuff up front. After that, I don't care if you do the ping pong balls, it's all right.
And that is, I believe that is what Brewster does, is that they have the business of the town, the financial stuff, the budgets, and after that, it's the ping pong ball. It's the bingo
Well,
ball.
because
Big
quite
numbers.
frankly,
Stick
not,
around,
you
it's
know,
interesting.
every year is different, but if you, let's just pretend you get 5 petition articles sprinkled around 50 articles, it may be worthwhile, you know, people, I don't think can stand to hear 5 petition articles in a row. You probably want to ping pong ball that and move them around a little bit, just so people are staying there. Because the one thing you gotta remember is, you know, enough people leave. you
Special
can-
interests.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
enough people leave, you can call it back, so you gotta be careful.
And just to get back to your point, Richard, where I am still very new on this board, I'm taking a lot in. So maybe, you know, I will get more involved as as the time goes on. But right now, I feel the best thing I can do is just sit back, listen, take it all in, because there's an awful lot I've got to learn. Being on one side than being on this side, so totally different.
Well, it's your first year in the cycle. So it's
Yeah.
your first time on this side of it going to town meeting. Clerk, being the town clerk, you knew about the other
What
side,
more?
but now you're on
That's
this
it.
side.
Now on this side. And it's an awful lot to learn, it's an awful lot to take in. And I'm also the type of person that I am not gonna open up my mouth and say anything unless I can substantiate it with facts. I'm not going to just
Talk to give yourself talk.
talk, that's
Would
correct.
you talk to some of the other
That's sort of
members of the
refreshing.
board about that?
Yeah, no, but it's just the way that I am. Like, right now, I'm not saying too much at the meetings, because I'm learning, I'm listening, I'm taking it all in. However, if I do have something to say, I will say it.
Ping pong balls.
Yeah,
I was
one,
just gonna say, back to Julie's pink, I don't have a problem with that. The only thing I worry about putting the petition articles at the end of the night, because the only people that will stay are the ones that want
Petitioners.
that.
Special interest, yeah.
So I worry about that, but other than that, I do also agree with Peter, you gotta get the budget through up front when you've got the full
Right.
crowd there.
mhm.
It's not a bad idea.
But I wouldn't have a problem
I
with
like
ping
it. I think I
ponging,
do like it.
ping ponging carefully. I don't know that I'd draw them out of a hat, cause I'd wanna sprinkle those petition things.
Well, let's
Well,
put
it's-
them all, the slips in a hat and pick out, this is the article we're gonna do next. It does keep people from loading the night they think their article they're
Yeah.
interested in. It makes them come for the whole, because they have no idea when their special interest article is going to
Yeah.
come up.
Okay.
So
And
they,
the moderator doesn't know
Oh, so you
either.
don't, so it's
Right.
not, it's not in the warrant, so they
No.
know up
No.
front.
All the
Well,
articles
it's
are in.
in the
Right.
warrant, I mean, the
In the
printed,
warrant.
right, so they can read it.
The article's in, but we're gonna take
not
Article
the
31.
order.
It's like
Ah.
Article
yeah.
42.
Card.
I like that.
Article
Yeah.
67.
Like a
Yeah.
big bingo board.
That's
yeah.
right, well, they had that machine
Do
that
they have a
pops up,
real
yeah,
pop-
that picks up a
That's a
ball.
bingo, that's a bingo
I
ball.
think,
Yeah.
I think that would be
Bingo
great.
ball.
I like that a lot
Fun,
now,
too.
Judith, thank you.
You can all sit
It
on
wasn't
those
my idea, but I
long
agree.
tables and smoke cigarettes.
Okay, any other comments? Lou,
Bingo.
one last one.
This is gonna be complex, multifaceted. We're
I'll
about
make it
20
short.
minutes.
Oh, no.
Basically, I want to get something clear. What I hear is that a select person has to deal with a lot of individual things that they don't want to. A lot of day-to-day. You can all point to those things. But when the question comes up of what are high-level decisions that you'd like to make, that becomes a more difficult thing to explain. So, attack me if you will, please. What if this group, this commission, was to put a list of high-level items in on what
Into
the
where?
board, into the charter, of just hear me
No,
out
you
first.
wanted
Don't
to-
attack first. Hear
I
me out.
wanted to clarify, put
Okay,
it where?
fair enough.
Charter?
In the
okay.
charter, and that would be a guide so that people understood. It's like reading, what does a chief executive officer do for a corporation? What does and the difference between an entrepreneur. The entrepreneur gets up in the morning, opens the door, sweeps the carpet, does all that. The chief executive has someone to do it for him and thinks of, how do I make more money tomorrow than I did today? So if you had that guideline, would it help?
Well, you
Or
might
if you
say,
had-
when you're talking about it, for example.
Yep,
So when you say high-level stuff, you might say, for example.
example.
When you say, don't get into the day-to-day.
For
For example,
example.
don't start messing around with, employees and, blah, blah, blah. I don't think you can nail it down specifically, because you're trying to change the charter every time you turn around. 'Cause
More
I can't
of a
foresee
definition.
everything.
More of a definition of what is a high-level decision.
I think that's where you're gonna get into trouble, though, because when you say something like high-level decision, I don't even know if that's the proper way to phrase it, but high-level decision. For example, these three things. Well, a fourth one comes up and it's not in the charter. You're gonna corral yourself, back yourself into a corner
Possibly.
that the select board can only do these three things, and
Well,
So I'm
now
gonna
they're-
use a different word to help. Strategic thinking.
Versus tactical.
Okay, strategic thinking, this is what is driving my thought process, to say the select board should be dealing with strategic issues that affect the town.
And I don't know if we can codify it in the charter, but that's what the explanation will be as we present this charter
All right.
to people, to say that, right, you can't codify those, here's the strategic planning, here's the long-term planning, such as wastewater, such as,
Can't identify the individuals,
right.
no.
But giving them time to do away with the day-to-day, and as Mary brought in, as we've talked about, getting rid of that, not normally, no. Do not deal with the day-to-day operation of the town, as you've said. You don't want to get involved in. But as we present this to the community prior to town meeting, to say, that's what we're looking for. So when we say we want to take away some of those day-to-day operations, the licenses that could be handled by a licensing board, and I know the select board is the licensing board, but they could abdicate that to a licensing board to do that day-to-day and not take 45 minutes at a select board meeting that you could be talking about wastewater and what's going to be like in 20 years. We're at 82 million. What's going to happen in 3 years when we're at 100 million? How's it going to impact this community? So I think it's in how we present to the town is where we can get into those discussions. I'm just not sure we can codify it in the charter.
I don't disagree, but you can codify it in different ways.
Then you
If
better
you-
come up with some language as to how you think it should be done, because right now, this is the airplane ride.
Yep.
And if you want to put together 3 sentences, not
You
the
just
second.
And we did
played
talk-
right into his hands. Just right into his hands.
But we did talk last week, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, about once a year, the select board shall meet to put together a year-long visioning plan, like your
Vision
goals, your visioning statement. Almost like most businesses in January, they meet for a few days.
Planning
and
sessions.
Planning sessions.
I don't know if that's most businesses.
So
I've never
before
been in
they
a
do
business
that,
that
they
did
need
that.
to review how they
I was
did
in
the
billion-dollar
previous year.
businesses.
So Peter, if you only have 2 meetings a month, it kind of drives you into doing strategy versus day-to-day.
Well,
Yeah,
the
but
question
you're
is,
not-
are
you're
there
not
2
caught up.
6-hour meetings versus 4
Yeah.
4-hour meetings?
Well, you can,
But one thing's for sure, I think we all know, if you're in a meeting for 4 hours,
you're
it's
not
not very effective.
That's right.
I
Right.
mean,
First
it
half
just
hour.
isn't.
No good decisions are made after 9:30.
Espresso machine.
Anything else the three of you could think as either current select board member or previous select board members that you can offer to the charter?
You know, I guess one of the things is, how do we get people interested in running for selectmen or any, any elected position?
Slips
the
at
charter
the
thing.
Allen Harbor.
Huh?
Slips at Saquotucket.
Well, no, I mean, that's not a crazy idea. I mean, here's one for you. If you look at the way the board works now and how much time and effort they have to put into this, and we pay them, what, $1,500 a year, something, whatever it is?
2,500.
25, they got a raise.
Hey,
They got a raise from us.
Yeah, okay, but I mean, well, you know what happened? We used to get more and we had health insurance access and then we all decided we're gonna be good people in the public, so we just kept squeezing it down. But at some point you squeeze it enough where, maybe someone who's a builder or contractor or something wouldn't even think about running. But if you somehow jacked it up a little bit, they might say, hey, maybe I should take a swing at it and get involved. And it might change, instead of us old people being there, it might be some younger folks, which I think would be.
That would
Kind
be
of
really
nice.
healthy.
It also might be helpful when this government structure gets itself together and gets past a lot of the negativity that's back there, and the board is concentrating on more big issues, that might in itself encourage more people to run. If it's not as dysfunctional as it has been
Could be,
over
if
the
it's not
past
much
10 or
as a
15
time
years.
commitment, that would be helpful, I think. I mean, 'cause you can tell us you're putting a lot of work in reading and figuring things out.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
We had a general discussion about that, going back to the days when there were full-time select board members who served as the Board of Health and the Board of Assessors. And they were paid
Yeah.
yearly and they had the insurance coverage. Those changed, as charter changed,
Yeah.
those roles changed.
Yeah.
And we've had the discussion of how to get people involved. And that's the whole idea of, what do we do to get people to town meeting? We can come up with all these ideas, but it's still, we still the same people every year. It hasn't changed. It's, I don't think we can codify something in the charter to do that, to get them to town meeting.
You either have a deep interest in the town or you don't.
Yeah.
Or, and there are lots and lots of people out there in our community, just, they don't even pay attention to it and they don't come to town meeting and they're might complain about taxes, but most of them will say, yeah, but when I lived in New Jersey, I was paying 3 times as much or 4 times as much, so.
Anything else, Mary or Anita?
Just on that whole, money, I don't think money would make the difference in wanting to be a selectman,
I don't think it would either.
you know, because you're not gonna make it a salaried position. We got a town administrator, we're just trying to, I don't think that would help. I don't know. I
$300,000
try
I might
to
consider.
find people.
I mean, that's a foolish statement, Lou, because that translates into everybody paying more in their taxes.
Oh,
You know, so you've got 5 selectmen, come
she
on.
knows how to get him, put him right under the thumb. Just talk about taxes.
I mean, they're saying, you know, we can say, oh yeah, everybody should get paid $100,000 a year. But the answer is no, because what that means for our taxes, there's ramifications to anything, any decision. You can't be, so.
You know, I just leave you with the thought that as much as we who are inside the circle, if you will, and working hard at making this town what it is, we have a pretty wonderful town. I mean, you think about it, and
Yep.
it's reasonably inexpensive to live here tax-wise and whatnot. Our services, you know,
Oh, Madam Chair, just on the conversation about engagement, you know, this is a challenge that communities across the state are grappling with in terms of getting new people involved. And your charter's already doing a lot of things that some communities have tried in terms of having a pre-town meeting, budget meeting to explain the budget with the finance committee, public hearing, a lot of these things. One thing that is relatively new and innovative that I'm just putting before you to consider is when Cambridge considered a charter redraft, they considered putting together a advisory committee. Now they got a city form, but it was an advisory committee on the budget to the council that would be populated by sortition, so that is random selection of voters, and it's also something being done in, I forget exactly which place, but it's in Europe. They had a recent big article about it, so that's a really new, really unique thing, not done anywhere else in Massachusetts, in the States, but I'm just, you know, those are sort of the out-of-the-box things that some places are considering. Cambridge ultimately didn't move forward with the idea, but I'm just, you know, just informing the group that was something they thought of.
What was it again?
We'll be interested in hearing other ones if you hear them throughout the state.
Advisory committee on the budget.
We'll definitely be
to
happy
their
to
town
hear about
council.
engagement opportunities.
Yeah, finance.
Thank you all for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good luck, I appreciate the work you're doing.
I just
input.
would like to say I really appreciate all the work you guys have been doing. I was with Winnie Ovaska when that's an old name
my
coming back,
goodness,
I
yeah.
know. When I was
Wow.
on this board, when it first came back for a revision in 2006. It's an awful lot of work that you guys are doing, and I give you an awful lot of credit for trying to take on this task. And I know you guys will do a great job.
We're having fun at it.
We can tell.
Yeah, we
can
got
tell.
Every Thursday.
All right, good
Thank
luck.
you very much.
Thank you again.
Bye-bye, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right,
Yeah,
it's 7:53, and I highly doubt we're gonna start doing a red line draft. Do we wanna just do the discussion on charter language? Because I don't know if people actually read the red line draft. It came out yesterday.
I couldn't see it.
You have to open it in Word to see it.
You have to open it in Word.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Open it
most
in-
likely,
Yeah.
most likely.
And it will print out,
Right, it
Could we
printed
hold
out
that for
straight.
the next time?
No,
it'll
it's a
print
re-
out like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it'll-
mine, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So I open it Word, print it
I
in
don't
Word,
have
not.
Oh, yes.
not
Yeah,
PDF
just,
format.
Yeah,
download it, and, yeah.
Because then it'll come out like this,
Okay.
your typical red line.
I-
So I would like everybody
Mhm.
to read this for next week and go through the red line pieces, and is this the stuff that we think we want to propose? Rather than going through line by line and parsing words. And I think we have some things to, to figure out how to say it, but I'd be interested, Anthony, in this question of if you can figure out this. Our select board is the licensing agency, so they do all the licenses, as Peter was saying, for milk jugs and everything else, entertainment and
Convict
Saturday
alert,
entertainment, everything.
Alcoholic
Alcohol,
entertainment.
everything, and it's a pile like this every year. Is there any reason why the select board could not designate that to someone else? Are they by statute have to be the authorizing person? I know they are on liquor licenses,
Right.
but all the rest of these licenses of entertainment and opening hours and stuff like that. So I'd appreciate if you would poke into that.
Common victor orders.
You're on mute.
Sorry. So, just a brief answer now, and we can look into it more deeply, but many modern charters, they do have the same language that the select board is the licensing authority, but also with the, with language that said that they may designate other bodies in the community, other boards to fulfill, to serve some of those licensing purposes.
Cool.
Most charters, particularly modern charters, are giving them that flexibility to do that.
So
To
the,
designate another body to service that.
so that phrasing of the select board does this or a designee, that designee language. Okay, that might work.
Yeah, we want to maybe talk about that.
I've got some notes
Good,
here of the
great.
things we can talk about.
Great. Oh, you did.
Compliance, you want to quickly go through
I
quote?
just wanna, I don't wanna sort of but I was listening to the conversation on the strategic visioning for the select board. You did make some changes just around saying that they're the policy making, that really they only have the policy making authority, that they won't get involved in the day-to-day. And usually the words policy making is interpreted to be strategic planning. So it's about what the goals are, not the how do we get them there. So, I could I'll go back to the team and noodle around about what could be more about what language could make it more clear that they're strategic planners, but I actually think that current language you have now is pretty clear around, they're supposed to keep their eyes on the future and not worry too much about the day-to-day.
Okay.
But we can look at that.
Okay, great. All right, well, it is. Go ahead.
Oh, well, when I talked to Anthony, what was it, a week and a half ago now? Seems like longer, about the compliance. I think that you understand that what we're looking for is to have a deterrent that we hope we don't ever really have to use. But it's also, you got my language, you got the draft that I sent you.
Yeah. Yes.
So, when you have some thoughts about that, that would be another good topic to get into.
And on that, and the compliance, we're looking more education deterrent rather than the hammer. We want more the carrot than the hammer. But
with a hammer.
with multiple violations, that there is a hammer there. And but truly any first violation of it should be, unless it's egregious, should be educational. And, God willing, we would never have to use that compliance here in town, but we need to have it available. And not having it has caused difficulty in the past in this town.
Well, in addition to, we're talking about combining it with arbitration
Yeah.
with review.
Right.
So it's gonna be an active board in one way or another, even if it never uses its compliance muscle. So,
Okay.
but that's what we talked about. And it was a good talk, thank you.
All right. I am going to, it's almost 8 o'clock and I know
Looking for a motion?
no, sit down.
I am sitting down. Do I look like I'm sitting down?
Yes.
I'm so glad my wife is
Very
here.
short.
So, you all got the red line, open it up in Word, and you can see what it is. I'd like you all to be prepared next week to have read through the red line, and is this what we think we have agreed or
Good.
consensus on? What?
Give us a tap on the wrist, you said that twice now.
Well, I'm gonna make sure you actually
Okay,
do
Mom.
it.
We got it, Mom.
Well, we'll see, because I'm gonna quiz you.
Parochial school. Okay, sister.
I'm gonna quiz you all. But if you would read through it, because it's a first draft, there are a couple of things in here that we may want to then be tweaking here and there. Because I think eventually, one of the things that'll go will be that whole chapter 7, which is the appointed town agencies.
Now we want to entertain a motion?
Fine.
Second.
A couple
Yes,
things.
Motion
Paul,
adjourned.
what? Well, Paul,
One is, the town moderator will be attending our session on the 26th of February, as we
You have a
talked about
confirmation?
last week.
do you have a confirmation of that?
Confirmation.
Okay,
have
great.
it, 26th, last Friday in February.
Okay,
I also had a conversation in light of our committee
This is the
meeting
last Friday.
with the
February 12th.
finance director, and she is very willing and interested in coming. Obviously, right now, she's just got her
You
hands
just
full.
said Friday. so
But
it's
at
not
some
six.
point, she wants to be involved.
Good.
I did have a lengthy conversation
Thursday,
with
that's
her
right.
about what we were doing on the
It's 12th.
committee,
It's Thursday,
subcommittee.
it's 12th,
And she endorses our efforts
That's the
to
12th.
date, and
Yeah.
we'll have a report for the full commission coming up, but
And
on the
just-
12th.
Right. Just the agenda was
Subcommittee.
incorrect.
Agreeable to everything I want there.
The agenda was incorrect. Next meeting's the 12th, followed, then we'll have the moderator the 26th. The
Right.
agenda says the 11th.
My mistake.
Okay.
So,
But it's
and,
Thursday.
and if the
Thursday.
finance,
Thursday, the 12th.
if this little finance subcommittee could have their report, issue it 3 or 4 days, like now, so the rest of us can have a chance to read it. Because I don't want to come here and then everybody sits here for half an hour reading a report.
and I want everyone to read.
No. Anthony, you need anything before?
And
Need
quiz.
anything else from us, Anthony? Because next week is going to be, basically, the only thing on the agenda is going to be the red
Red
line.
line.
You have a motion on the floor, Madam Chair?
Yes, do I?
Yes, you
And
do.
you have a second?
Richard, is there a
Yes.
second?
You do.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hallelujah.
Thanks, Anthony.
Thank you, Anthony.
And I maybe, at my mom's, so.
See you
tomorrow.
I'll just, just to text you to let you know, I'll be like.
We haven't
on
come
a-
by.
Yeah.
their phone or-
Good night.